All right. What's going on, guys? I was on earlier, had some a little bit of a fire alarm issue. Nothing's wrong though. All is good. Just a little, extra heat in the oven kitchen going on right now. So, thanks guys for tuning in. As you know, my name is Steve Pintado. I am the host of the Fantasy Coaches podcast, as well as a fun member of Unwrapped Sports Network as well. Coming to you live today. If you haven't seen the caption I have there, Coach Steve's 32 teams in 32 days, well, I am doing quick 15-20-minute fantasy previews on each team for the next 32 days. And we are on day 6 now. It's that early and I'm already gone. I can't wait until I'm into the 20s. But today, I'm talking about the New York Jets. If you haven't seen my other ones, we've talked about the Eagles, the Steelers, the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Bucks, the Titans, and the Washington Redskins. So actually, I'm on day 9, actually. Wow. I've gone through a lot of teams. I didn't realize how much I've actually done so far. So, yeah, we're talking about the New York Jets today. And, there's a decent amount of players we could talk about here. So, kind of get right into it. Start with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold last year. We all know what happened with Sam Darnold last year. Basically, he had mono to begin the year, unfortunately, and he had mono to begin the year. And it kind of kept him out for a good portion of the early part of the season. He missed about, 3 or 4 games last year due to his mono. But he came in week 1 real strong. He had a pretty good performance. And then he had a pretty decent stretch down the end of the season, actually, where he was actually pretty, he was usable last year at some point during the season. But in overall terms, I have concerns with Sam Darnold, but he also has a upside that I kind of like as well. And so basically Sam Darnold is with Adam Gase. And we all know Adam Gase. I'm a Dolphins fan, so, Adam Gase has been a not a great coach over his tenure over this time frame. So, hey, Michael Robert, thanks for joining. If I'm a little behind, I'm trying to see who joins in on my streams as we go along. So if I call your name later, I apologize. So basically, Adam Gase has not produced a top offense in his entire time coaching. He was many years in Miami and never produced a real top player. Ryan Tannehill is his quarterback. Again, not the greatest, but again, pretty servable quarterback we saw last. But, in his head coaching career, he's produced one top 20 fantasy quarterback. And that's a concern with Darnold because I think the offense is kind of vanilla at times and he just doesn't show his worth. And I think it's starting to really, at this point, I think we all kind of say that Peyton Manning made Adam Gase have somewhat of a career right now because it wasn't Adam Gase who really got that going. And then, in terms of going back to Sam Darnold, I mean, he progressed last year, definitely from his rookie year to his second year. One stat that really jumped up is that he was much better under pressured situations compared to his rookie season. His completion percentage when under pressure went from 28% to 49%, which was actually 9th best in the league. I don't understand sometimes these quarterbacks, when they're getting pressured, it's really hard to make a pass when they're getting messed up. So only some of the greats can really do it. And, he didn't have over 20, touchdowns last year. He had 13 picks, kind of something that not good at all. He only had 3 QB1 performances, and again, not very good. So, what can we say for him this coming season right now? Well, again, they brought in Rashard Perryman. We'll talk about soon. We brought in Denzel Mims. Chris Herndon should be back and healthy. You bring in a vet like Frank Gore. You bring in a youngster, Michael Pirine. I mean, you have some players there who thanks for following the broadcast. Thank you so much. Basically, you brought in some players to kind of help him. Again, still not enough. I really wanted them to bring a real wide receiver 1 for his team. So, what upside does he have? Well, he produced down the stretch last year. And again, they were playing some pretty mediocre teams. You saw him, do bad against some of the tougher defenses. So it's like up and down. We really haven't seen Sam Darnold and really know who he is and if he can actually be a full-time starter. Not a full-time starter, but a fantasy-worthy quarterback in drafts this year. You've seen him perform really well against a good team, and then the next game he just shits the bed. And I don't understand where it's coming from, and I think it could be the coaching. I mean, we saw last year he was And I had to say it because it's funny. It's funny. He was seeing ghosts last year, guys. At one point, I mean, who says that as a quarterback? Come on. You can't say that out there out loud, and especially if you're mic'd up. So Sam Darnold's still a quarterback that's in question because he's got a couple more years. And the best thing for him is probably if Adam Gase leaves and they bring a new coach that understands how to use Sam Darnold the right way. He's got an arm to him. He can do something down the field. They just haven't been giving him the weapons to do so yet. So in terms of 2020, you're looking at a quarterback I think can put up a decent, more of a waiver wire quarterback who can put up decent numbers in good matchups. In bad matchups, I would be a little hesitant to want to start him. So you could draft him late if you want to, but I could see him being a quarterback that probably in a one quarterback league gets the undrafted status and is used throughout the season on various waiver pickups, bye weeks, what have it. I mean, he's a pretty solid QB2 in superflex leagues, I'd say. I would be okay having, but in terms of a one quarterback league, especially 9 to 10 people, it's a bit concerning about wanting to have Sam Darnold on my roster because his upside could be there, but it also seems to be negated with the offensive that he's around and the head coaching. Going over the running back position, though, starts with the bottom tier guy, LaMichael P. Ryan. Definitely a favorite of mine in drafts this year. Very effective runner in college, very significant threat out of the receiving game. Had 40 receptions his senior year. Just an all-around stable running back with some good vision, balance, physicalness, just enough speed to beat out defenders if he needs to. He never had a big workload in college. His best was, he only averaged 120 carries, so he wasn't a guy who could see 250 in college. He never had that role. In terms of this year, probably not going to be a big thing unless something happens with LeVeon Bell at some point during the season. I think he's a really great dynasty stash right now, just to hold on your taxi squad for another year or two, because I don't think LeVeon Bell will be there after this 2020 season, and I think Michael P. Ryan could see an opportunity of having a bigger workload come next year. But again, not a big 2020 guy. Maybe if something happens to the top two guys like Frank Gore. So you all know Frank Gore and I believe he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, it's just the age and the longevity that he's had in this league is just something that you just can't match. I mean, not many people can do this for that long, and especially the position that he's in. And I respect the guy. He's not a kid. He's the old man a lot. I mean, again, in terms of fantasy this year, you're not looking at a guy who's going to see big numbers. I mean, he's probably an RB5, maybe RB6, and standard at least. Doesn't have a big PPR floor. I mean, 16 targets last year, and now he's got Le'Veon Bell working with him, who's pretty much a target machine. But he saw 26 red zone carries last year overall. I mean, so he's probably going to be used on goal line situation. His best upside if he sees touchdowns, again, he only had 2 last year, so I don't know how much upside that really is. And again, they're probably going to be behind in game. I don't know how many times Frank Gore is going to be running the ball when they're down overall. So Frank Gore, while he's probably a 5 RB standard, probably RB5 standard, after that I really wouldn't want him for the most part. It just doesn't seem like he's going to see a big workload. But again, Adam Gase has been known to, and we saw it when he was in Miami for the 1 year over Kenyon Drake, be used very much. So don't be shocked if you see but Frank Gore put up 20 carries in one game for no reason at all. That's just the way Adam Gase works sometimes. Again, probably an undrafted guy. I really don't want to go out there and spend any capital on him unless, something changes where he's more involved after week 1. I know they have a pretty tough schedule early on for the Jets, so I probably wouldn't want him in the beginning part of the season. As terms of Le'Veon Bell, a lot of people have Le'Veon Bell kind of bouncing back. I mean, he had 6 RB1 performances last year. He had, 66 targets last season. He's been a PPR machine in his career, especially early on. But we haven't seen that same Le'Veon Bell last year. He just had 3 games last year with over 4 yards a carry. Didn't have that same swagger he had when he was back over in Pittsburgh. Hey, Chip Thorne, thanks for joining into the stream. I mean, he was only targeted 78 times last year. He managed 9 games over 10 fantasy points. Didn't put up any big games over the season, not many, very few. And the defense just didn't throw the ball to the running back enough that I thought they were going to probably do. But I mean, again, people talk about him having a chance to bounce back. Yeah, there's a small chance, I guess you could say. But does he see over 246 carries next year? I don't think he does personally. I mean, he's older now. He's 29 years old back. I mean, you got Frank Gore there for a reason, I think. Does he have the touchdown upside? Probably not, but he has probably the receiving upside. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what you're betting on, him having a pretty big receiving season once again, and especially in the targets and half point PPR and PPR leagues. I think that's where you're seeing your best value with LeVeon Bell. Again, he still has that shot to be an RB2, definitely not an RB1 anymore. But I think overall in the season, you're looking at a guy who's going to be probably an RB3 for you most of the time. Those high, 25, 26 overall by the end of the season. Someone who I'm probably more comfortable and the better value you're getting in those 10 to 12 man leagues, probably in round 5 and 6, I think would be the best bet. I just don't see Le'Veon Bell having a career season or a big comeback season this coming year, just the way the offense is operating. And I just don't expect this, Jets team to be very far. They lost some key defenders last year. Yes, he's got a better O-line, so he may have a better running game in terms of having a better yards per carry. But that doesn't mean it's always going to turn out to be a really good fantasy value. So just keep your eyes out on that overall. That don't expect him to bounce back, but have him as a decent, I think, starting back in a flex spot or maybe an RB3 or 4, not 4, but RB3 at least. So I gave him some respect on his name still. And going over the wide receivers, Denzel Mims is one guy that we're really probably wanting to keep our eyes on. Second round pick who kind of fell in draft after being projected as a first rounder, comes in the league. He's probably going to be the X or the Y, probably opposite of Brashad Perriman. His strengths are he has a massive catch radius. He's got a big body to him. Good body control to bring down catches. Again, he needs to work on his route running ability. He had some issues in press coverage last year, and he'll be competing for targets. I mean, obviously Le'Veon Bell's there, so he's going to get his. We also know that when we get there, the slot role has a big feature in this offense here. And then again, Perryman, Chris Herndon are all going to be in the offense. So again, he doesn't have the offseason to work with Sam Darnold as much or learn the offense to that ability. So he may take time to kind of work his way into the offense. But again, who never knows? Denzel Mims could see an opportunity as early as week 1. We just don't know that yet. And again, he's kind of that long shot if you want to take a last round pick to see if maybe he becomes a stud in this offense. You can't really go wrong. But again, is the Jets still, their offense isn't that great. But we could see what happens. That's why you kind of take him with one of your last picks, because he has opportunity to kind of do something next year, but isn't something that I'm really like, oh, God, I got to have Denzel Mims this year. He's a great dynasty prospect, don't get me wrong. I think he could be a real good wide receiver for the future, but in this first year, he may not see the volume that you would really want from your, guy, unless he's your wide receiver 5 or 6, basically, with that upside that maybe he does something in year 1. Brashad Perriman, we all saw Brashad Perriman last year. He's been a bust basically all through his career after coming into the league in 2017. What happened? He just, a couple years with the Ravens didn't work out right. A couple of years with the Browns. They tried to re-sign him. Odell came. He's like, I don't want nothing, no part of that, and decides to stay with Tampa last year. And from week 13 to 16, he was wide receiver 4. And eventually wide receiver 1 at some point during the season, during a couple weeks there, and had 3 straight 100-yard games. He had yards per reception of 17.6. He could be the new Robbie Anderson, as we saw Robbie Anderson, unfortunately not be as consistent as we would like, but could end up being somewhat of a downfield threat. It's, again, we haven't seen him do it more than after that. From week 13 to 16, that was all we really have on him. Everything before that, potential. That's all it was. So there's some risk to see if he can if that was just the pure volume he saw in the offense, or if he can actually be really effective with the targets he does get on a week-to-week basis. So again, we saw Robbie Anderson over the last couple of seasons now be productive. Again, it's always been in the second half of the year, but at times, Robbie Anderson is a fantasy asset. So Brashad Perriman has that opportunity because he has a similar speed built to Robbie Anderson, a little bit bigger though, and I said he's someone you can get in those double-digit rounds. I think he's a draftable guy overall because I think he'll be involved in this offense. He's a veteran at this point, probably something over Denzel Mims. There's a lot of new pass catchers back here in this Jets offense. So he's definitely someone in that round 12, 13, 14 range. You get as your wide receiver 4 or 5, probably 5 if you're going to go for a guy like this, and see if he can provide some upside for you in fantasy football this coming season. Jameson Crowder, probably the most wanted player on the Jets team I would want. If you didn't listen to me last year, if you guys didn't listen to my podcast, I hyped up Jameson. He's going to be a stud. Not 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. He had 6 games that were really good. After that, everything else was like eh. But again, he didn't have Sam Darnold for a while. Sam Darnold was coming back off injury. So even with that, he's still a pretty productive season. I mean, he's always been a pretty good PPR guy, especially out of the slot role. And the one thing about about the New York Jets is that Adam Gase runs offense out of the slot role. You've seen it every single year in Miami that the slot player, and even last year in the Jets, are the featured guy for some reason, and they always seem to finish with like a top 30 season, and try to finish at 33. So not horrible, but I mean they finish good, and they always have a strong reception total, yards total, whatever it may be. And you're going to get that again from Jamison Crowder this season. I mean, he's probably going to see at least 100 targets, I'd say, and he's going to have probably Sam Darnold for hopefully 16 games this season. Maybe if Adam Gase is gone at some point during this year, which I believe, that would maybe affect him a little bit. But you're going to think in those, rounds 10 to 12 range to be your wide receiver 4. And if you're in a full point PPR league, is definitely someone who you would have a really strong wide receiver 4 with in fantasy football. Hey, March and Champ, what's going on? Thanks for joining in. So if you're looking for that wide receiver 4 or 5, to be your kind of not upside, but a solid floor that you could get every single week, Jamison Crowder is a guy you got to get in almost every single year draft because he is going to put up receptions and targets and have a decent season this coming year. The tight ends, we're almost finished here. I think this is about 20 minutes. I really don't know how much time is, and now I'm working on just one computer. Kind of gotten away from me a little bit. Real quickly though, Ryan Griffin isn't a big name to remember, but if Chris Herndon can't kind of bounce back, Ryan Griffin, we saw him to have 4 tight end ones last year, have probably his best year of his career. Was obviously very involved in this offense, and again, if something happened to Herndon, he'd be a waiver pickup that could be useful maybe in those deeper man leagues, but probably not really in a 10 to 12 man league. But just someone to keep your name on if something happens to Chris Herndon. Chris Herndon, as we all know, the fourth that he is, really good rookie season. Coming strong and posted 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, and started to produce really well as a tight end 6 down the stretch in 2019, 18. I'm sorry about that. And it wasn't an Adam Gase offense, though. But we saw, again, Ryan Griffin be productive in an Adam Gase offense to an extent. So maybe Chris Herndon, overall athlete and catcher, could kind of do something in this offense here. But just so you know, Adam Gase offense doesn't feature the tight end. And no tight end has reached over 400 yards under his head coaching tenure. Yes, Chris Herndon is probably the one exception because it hasn't had a tight end to his kind of caliber, but is a concern overall for me. And I really wouldn't want to draft Chris Herndon as my tight end 1, maybe as a backup if you want to take a shot on him to see if maybe he's that involved in the offense. But I wouldn't recommend having him as your tight end 1 because, again, it's not a featured role in the offense. Again, he's coming off injury once again, and, you just don't know what you're going to get from this Jets team. Guy like Chris Herndon, his targets could be fluctuated, and you just don't know what your new offense, maybe because he's been there, he might have an advantage of some of these new guys field. It really will come down to Sam Darnold's progression and how he will target Chris Herndon on a week-to-week basis. Again, you could take him late if you want to take a shot on him and see maybe he has some kind of potential early on in the season, but don't rely on him as your tight end 1 week in and week out. Again, the offense just isn't featured that much in New York, and changes with Adam Gase gone, that could be the case at some point. And if that's the case, then I would really want to try to grab Chris Herndon because he had ended just that. Last year wasn't his way, and hopefully in a fresh third-year season will make the up for what kind of happened last year. So that is my New York Jets take, guys. I appreciate you guys listening in. I hope you guys enjoy enjoy listening to this. I definitely enjoy doing this week in and week out. It's a lot of fun, and we'll be doing it tomorrow, Sunday night, same time, maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock, and tomorrow will be the New York the New York Giants tomorrow night. So that should be a lot of fun. A lot of talk about Saquon, Evan Ingram, and Jones. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. So thanks for listening. Again, my name is Steve Pintato. I am the host of the Fantasy Coaches Podcast, and you can find my website at www.thefantasycoaches.com. And we have all of our fun articles and other things like that you can go and check out. So I appreciate you guys for listening in. Tune in tomorrow night while I talk about the New York Giants. New York Giants. Take care, guys.